radio.com as we talked this morning about school financing. This is a conversation that I feel the best policy for me is to just get out of the way and let the experts go at it with us here this morning. And that's going to be the case. Walter Schroth, president of the Indiana Area School Board, and the superintendent of the Indiana Area School District, Rob Heinrich, joined us this morning. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Morning, Todd. Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. Our visit presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. So the courts have decided Pennsylvania's school funding formula just is broken and needs fixed fast. We don't know how we're ever going to make that kind of progress in the state of Pennsylvania. We've been fighting this battle for many, many years. Property taxes are the primary funding mechanism from a local area, from a local standpoint. You add in all of the others who contribute to making a school district run. And Walter, the formula, in your mind, just isn't right.
That's correct, Todd. There's a couple of issues here. Number one, the property tax, the way it's configured and the way it funds our schools is unsustainable. There's an argument that can be made that we should raise taxes every year just to ensure that there is sufficient funding for the school districts. The problem is at some point you go upside down. Former Representative Frank Ryan gave an illustration at a briefing I attended that he gave where there was a property in Monroe County that was assessed at $250,000, and their property tax for that particular property was $25,000 per year.
Wow.
If you've got a mortgage that's 15 years and if the property was worth $250,000, it means you've paid the government, the school tax, the county, the municipality, that amount of money in a 10-year period where you haven't even paid the property off. Mm-hmm. When that happens, then it drives down the cost or it drives down your assessed value, because while the property might be worth $250,000, I'm only going to pay $100,000 for it because I'm going to have that kind of tax against it. When the assessed value goes down, then the amount of revenue that school districts and municipalities get from it also falls. I think we lost
$66 million since 2017 in assessed value in the the Indiana Area School District. So $66 million over that time period has resulted in over $1 million in lost revenue for the school district. So the money that we have on hand and ability to draw from the taxes at that rate is over $1 million. So it's a problem. It's a problem that is, and that's one of the problems that the property tax model presents. The other problem is it makes school districts inherently unfair, right? Because the type of school district you have depends on your tax base. Mm-hmm. So, Indiana has a very strong tax base. So we have a very good school district. Other school districts aren't as lucky because they don't have the same tax base. So they're not able to offer all the same programs that we are. So it's a blessing and a curse, the property tax, because it allows us to provide programming that other school districts can't, mm-hmm. but at the same time, shifts as the taxes go up, the assessed value goes down, and it's a unsustainable problem, like Mr. Schroth said.
We saw years ago that Indiana County had not even reassessed property values for 30-some years before they were reassessed. And now it's been a number of years since the last reassessment. That adds to the confusion, really, that school directors have to battle through in order to come up with a workable budget.
It does, Todd, but the real problem, again, is that when you do the reassessment, all you do is change where zero is, mm-hmm. because by law, the municipalities are restricted to what millage they can charge. And so when you get beyond that millage, then you reset the valuations, and then that allows the municipalities to continue with their program. The school district isn't restricted like that, but it still is impacted, again, when those taxes continue to go up, it becomes unsustainable. And one of the issues that Mr. Ryan, Representative Ryan, made was the next time there is a PSERS crisis. Right now we pay about 35% roughly of our of every dollar we pay in salary, we pay 35 cents to the PSERS. Well, what happens the next time we have a major recession? Okay, then that unfunded mandate, which we're required to pay, winds up then instead of 35 cents becomes 38 cents, 40 cents, 43 cents.
Yeah.
And then where does that money come from? From the school district. It's not sustainable.
Now, Representative Ryan made his presentation, 5 years ago? Since that time, the court ruling has come by that has mandated that Pennsylvania come up with a new system. Rob, it's difficult to say the clock is ticking because there doesn't seem to be any real action, any real movement.
Well, they've come up with a formula. They put together a committee that looked at taxes. They looked at the opportunities for every student. And they came up with a formula. The problem is that their first attempt at the formula needs redone. We end up with there's about 358 schools that get 97% of the new funding that comes out of that formula. Indiana Area School District, unfortunately, is one of the three. We're in that other 4% that don't get a lot of that new funding. So the proposed budget that is still being debated in Harrisburg only gives us about $65,000 new dollars from the state. Yeah. That's not enough. That's not keeping pace with the rise in our expenses. So, with dwindling support from the state and the federal monies that are being withheld, the Trump administration just withheld $200,000 from the Indiana Area School District and some title funding. We are struggling to make ends meet. It just further illustrates the point that the only tool that the directors have at their disposal is raise taxes. Raise property taxes, and that is eventually a balancing act that's going to get out of whack. And once we raise the property taxes too high, it will be undesirable to live here, which would start to make the property value plummet.
Yeah, you reached that point. Walter, sales taxes have been a part of the most recent proposals, not necessarily increasing from beyond 6%, except in Allegheny and Philadelphia areas, but sort of removing some of the restrictions on sales taxes and expanding the field, if you will.
Well, the problem with sales tax is that the whole system is convoluted. For example, I know from a story that my father told me where the sales tax on the cement that went in the silo for the foundation was taxable because it was property tax improvement, but the cement that actually went in the silo that sat on the foundation wasn't. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are all kinds of crazy anomalies in the sales tax system that we have that certainly would generate some additional revenue. But one of the questions, though, Todd, from a practical point of view, sales taxes tend to be somewhat regressive. In other words, they hit the people who are of a lower economic means harder as a percentage than they do the people who are better off. Mm-hmm. And in Colorado, they solved that problem by they tax their food and the clothing, but they give the residents essentially a certain amount of that money back in their property tax, capturing then the tourist tax dollars that come into the state and not hurting the residents.
Yeah.
So there's some things that they can do here to streamline the tax system, but also make it more fair and more equitable should they go that route. And a number of states use sales tax and personal income tax rather than the property as their primary source of funding, which provides a much broader area of your tax base beyond just the property owners.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of other states. Rob, of course, you and the business team there at the school district you have the advantage of being able to look at other states. It's much easier to look at how other states do it now in today's day and age than it might have been 20 or 30 years ago. Is there a state that does it exactly right?
Oh boy, I don't know. I like Colorado's model, where people who visit Colorado pay more of the burden than the actual residents of Colorado. That's brilliant. Florida's figured out. They've changed some things with their income tax that have been able to fund their schools, and that's one of the areas where Florida is not usually one of the leaders in education. So when they step up and figure out a way to fund it, that's something worth looking at. Every state's done it a little bit differently, and I don't know if there's a perfect model out there, but there's definitely some examples of some interesting ideas, and unfortunately the government officials or elected representatives have the unenviable task of figuring out how to fund public education. The Constitution of Pennsylvania says that the legislature has to fund it, and we have to do a good job. And we're talking about kids. At the end of this, it's dollars and cents, but really when it comes down to it, this is children, and this is our future economic stability. So it's a problem that we have to figure out, and everybody should be invested in it. So, I'm not sure if there's some lessons we can glean from other states, but it's definitely, there's some examples out there we need to look at.
Yeah, and Walter, of course, Pennsylvania, there are people that say Pennsylvania really is 3 states. There's the southeast corner, there's the southwest corner, and then there's the rest of the state. And people in those areas and the representatives in Harrisburg, they look at it from the perspective of, this is what my folks would like to see happen. And a lot of times, you've got three different states of Pennsylvania doing battle to come up with one formula.
Well, and that goes to Rob's point about the task that Representative Struzzi and Senator Pittman have, in that we aren't a monogamous state, and that there are these different areas with different priorities, and it does make it different. I mean, when you have a property tax system that has evolved the way it is today, to unwind that and to shift to sales or to personal income tax is not a simple task. And but I have every confidence that our folks can figure that out and come up with a solution. But Todd, it's more than just the property tax or the bill, the funding of the that the court has allowed. There are other things that are at play here also. And number one is we have 500 school districts in the Commonwealth. Okay, well, that's 500 superintendents. And while we love our superintendent, okay, that's probably 200 to 250 too many superintendents within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. We have a school district in Harmony, and you may be familiar with that area. They have a reported 236 total students for the entire school district. They graduate about 17 students a year, versus Indiana that has 2,700 students and graduates 200 students a year. Mm-hmm. I don't care how much money you throw at Harmony, you'll never be able to provide that school district the opportunities that we have at Indiana through our course selections and support of our students. Support is becoming, everybody wants to talk about the 3 R's, and they're absolutely critical. But more and more, we're spending time and effort in support services to get those students to be able to be successful in the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, and the science. Yeah. And so this entire system really needs to be revamped, including how it's funded, the organization of the school districts, and take a systemic look at where we are. Unfortunately, and Rob kind of alluded to this, the state legislature just decided to throw money at the court problem, okay? And I'm not so sure that just throwing more money at it ultimately provides the students the best education or the best educational opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Rob, we're going to have you back with some of your colleagues from the superintendent community
yes, sir.
in our segment right after the news at 9:30. Thank you both, gentlemen, for coming in to try to give a little more clarity to a situation that, frankly, we could spend hours I hear her talking about it.
Todd, block me off an hour and I'll be back. You may not be able to get me unwound.
There you go. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's Indiana in the Morning on WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.
This is Boomer Esiason with Sports Minute. Bubba Wallace's winless streak had hit 100 races. Now it's back at 0. On Sunday, Wallace held on to capture the Brickyard 400 in double overtime at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He also punched his ticket for the upcoming NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Bubba drives for the 2311 team owned by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. I'm Boomer Esiason.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting